Welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is failure, success, and alignment. And we're going to talk about how we often evaluate ourselves and others and the circumstances of our lives based on the polarity or the polarization, dual sort of spectrum of success and failure. And we're going to look at what it might be to instead use a metric of alignment to calibrate our actions and our assessments. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. Great to have you here with us this morning. And good morning to everyone else who's joining us. Today, we're talking about failure, success, and alignment. And I think what we get to really talk about is the difference not only between the polarization or the duality, polarity of failure and success, but also and versus alignment, but looking at goal versus intention, or outcome versus process. And I think that really the outcome versus process notion is where we're really headed in terms of a shifting paradigm, that rather than life being an outcome, because really what's the ultimate outcome of life is death, right? Part of this cycle of life, that's something that we don't get to escape as the ultimate outcome. If instead we are able to focus on process as the intention, process itself as the outcome, like living life, not trying to get here or there or somewhere, or achieve something as the thing that matters, but the entire process, the process of creating that intention, or even that goal, the process of moving in the direction of achieving it, and ultimately achieving it and evolving with it and allowing it to grow, being a process. So I'm kind of moving from this duality to a continuity. And when we look at success and failure, these are judgments that are necessarily time bound, right? Because if I succeed at this, that, or the other thing, I'm doing something, and it's kind of black and white. I either succeed at achieving a certain objective that is defined. Like the difference between goals and intentions is goals are kind of black and white. You reach it or you don't reach it. Whereas intentions, at least in my lexicon, intentions are process oriented. They're not necessarily time bound. They're not as fixed and static as a goal, a specific goal. So in other words, at least the way that I interact with intentionality is that it gives us breathing room. Like literally, it is process of life. This notion of success and failure, when we set these goals or set intentions, and then evaluate them in terms of success and failure. What we're doing is we're evaluating based on a specific instance, right? We're using certain criteria, certain expectations. The challenge with this whole success failure thing is that we then very often take it on as an identity. We very often internalize it, and we associate right and wrong or good and bad or merit or lack of merit to success or failure. And what accompanies that often is a sense with failure is a sense of shame, a sense of embarrassment, of diminished self-worth, of unworthiness, all kinds of peripheral things that we take on with our conventional notions of success and failure. And although we may have failed to achieve a certain goal or failed to fulfill a certain expectation, that doesn't mean that we as a being are a failure. And that's really where this success failure thing becomes somewhat problematic, because we drive ourselves by these successes or failures, and we internalize the them as an identity. And it's interesting because I'm looking at this because I am recognizing that that's this whole notion of success and failure, and being a failure, for instance, is something that I grew up with. Really owning that identity or taking on that identity without even realizing that I was taking it on, that it was a story. I experienced it, that it was the way things were, that it was an is, and it became an identity for me, which then projects into our experience. Because we've talked about this a lot, what we take on as identity becomes the lens through which we experience the world and the lens through which we create the world and the way that we magnetize experience or that we generate experience. So if I'm a failure, I need to generate experiences that validate that, right? I need to create and recreate being a failure in the context of failing, right? So I need to keep creating that failing over and over again. If I'm a success, I need to keep creating success, right? And what happens if I create something that isn't successful? How does that challenge my identity? It works on the whole spectrum. However, if I am a success, if I am identifying with that, if I am experiencing that, then even when there is a circumstance that is failing, it just means, well, that didn't work. Now I get to do something else. We can contextualize our successes and our failures in a greater context. So the thing about success and failure, again, is that it is specific. It's like, this didn't happen or this did happen by this time. And that is how I can then evaluate that something is a success or a failure. I met this objective that was time delimited, or I didn't. It's kind of black and white. However, the meaning around that in terms of it being shameful or wrong or bad or devastating or exalting, those are meanings that I then apply to those things. And rather than internalizing these definitions of things or of ourselves based on our manifesting or our expression in the world, what if we were instead to look at alignment? Am I aligned? Am I in alignment with my values? Am I in alignment with my core being? In other words, how do we calibrate ourselves? The success and failure thing is an external assessment that we then internalize, right? But it's based on externalities. Alignment is based on an internal experience. And it's something that is fluid and process based rather than outcome based. And so I think there's a way to be in the flow, in alignment, and accomplish things that are in alignment with our expression, that are coming from this place of inspiration, that are moving from our heart and soul. And when we find that alignment, I think what we end up doing is expressing purpose. We're aligning with our purpose. We're aligning with the deeper intention. And then the metrics that we might use for success or failure are really just markers along the way. I think where we get confused a lot is that we use these externalities to assess our value, rather than generating that value from within, from our alignment. We lose if we get too focused on these externalities. What happens is that we lose ourselves, we lose the connection and the direction and the clarity and the purpose that is at the core of us by listening or receiving only the external metrics, even when we've made those metrics for ourselves. You know, even when we've said, okay, that's my goal. The thing that we often do is something like, well, I'll feel happy when, or I'll let myself relax when this, that, or the other thing happens external to me. And the question is, why wait? Why not create that alignment now? Why not create that alignment in this moment? So then as we move toward our intentions, as we move into, as we flow into our lives, as we experience ourselves in the process of whatever it is we're intending to accomplish or embody or manifest in the world, we are actually living life. Because what we tend to do is, I think culturally, I think we're conditioned to this, is you have a thing that needs doing or that you're intending to do or you're committing to do. And then we put our beingness on hold to just push through doing something that makes us miserable, that's out of alignment, that derails us from our presence. Rosalind says self-induced stress. Well, who said this? Who said this or that needs to be done? Perfect. Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about, Rosalind, is this self-induced stress that we impose upon ourselves with the intention of getting stuff done, right? Get her done, just do it, right? Forget about how you feel, forget about your being, forget about what's going on and how that's impacting your being, because we take the being offline and we just become a doing, a human doing, and say, well, when this is done, that's when life happens. But then we find another this to do and to do and to do, rather than allowing the doing to emerge from being. I know when I say stop doing, it sounds like I mean do nothing. That's not what it means. What it means is start being. And as we be, as we are present to life, to the experience of this moment, we're more available to the opportunities that that moment is providing. We're more available to be called into some kind of action. We're more available to be expressing ourselves in an authentic way, rather than doing things that somebody else deems important, that that we're culturally conditioned to. You know, I'm going to get that big house. That's my goal. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. I'm going to put life on hold. I'm going to just put my nose to the grindstone, and I'm just going to do that, get all this, get the resources so I can get that big house. without ever questioning, and this is maybe a really mundane example, but without ever questioning is, what do I really want that big house? Like, what is it about that big house that I want? What is it that that big house is going to provide me in terms of beingness, in terms of the quality of my life? What is that thing going to get me? And when we can identify the beingness that we're seeking, because that's really what we seek, is happiness or ease or comfort or freedom or choice. That's really what we're seeking. We think we're going to get that through things. And there are some things that delight us, no question. Maybe you get that house that you always dreamt of, and it is everything you ever dreamt of, and you feel alive, and you feel that it's in alignment, and you feel that it's a perfect expression. And that's wonderful if it is in alignment. But oftentimes, I don't know about you, but oftentimes I have pursued certain things, getting certain things, that when I get them, it's like, oh, okay. I don't even get joy or pleasure from them. It's just like, oh, okay. There are other things that I have worked for and that I have desired, that I have received, and that I have really thoroughly enjoyed because there was a huge alignment around that. And I imagine you can look in your lives and find the same thing, that there's certain things that there was that you worked for, and then it was like, oh, you did it, you accomplished it, but there wasn't a sense of joy, of jubilation, of celebration. It was like, okay, done that, next. And meantime, it was all kinds of struggle and suffering and whatever on the way. What if we could allow for a joyful experience if we're in alignment? So I had this conversation with a client about stress and the stress of commitments to do things, certain things, that they were joyful about making that commitment. And the conversation came up. This was something that I learned from a training called Next Level, an organization that put on trainings called Next Level. And it was such a simple and profound distinction, transformational distinction, that can shift our beingness in the expression of our lives, in the doing part of our lives. It can shift our beingness. And it's this: we often say, I have to do this. I have so much I have to do. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do the other thing. And the first level shift is, I get to do this. I get to do this thing, and I get to do that thing, and I get to do the other thing as an opportunity. And feel into that. Just feel into that shift within yourself to see how the energy of that, of get to, is so different from the energy of have to. It's the difference between obligation, like an unwelcome obligation, and opportunity. It's the difference in that energy, kind of between obligation or imposition and opportunity. And then the next level is, I am blessed to. In other words, then instead of just even opportunity, it's actually a gift. It's actually a gift. So we're talking about different harmonics that are available to us. And when we say, I am blessed to, and even I get to, there's a greater alignment. It's providing an invitation that's calling us forward rather than something that is pushing us, where we're being pushed by an external. We're in a mode of receiving and a mode of greater openness. So rather than driving ourselves through success and failure and identifying ourselves with success and failure, what if instead we were to focus ourselves more directly on alignment and the process and being in the gift of the opportunities that life presents us, to be actually living life in the process of our doing, like to be being while doing rather than doing and ignoring our being. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is The Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it is a privilege and a cherished pleasure to have the opportunity to muse about being human together. So until next time.